Yeah, 340.
Okay, good afternoon. We are now live.
Right.
Yeah,
Good
we can start
afternoon.
now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this joint forum on mental health. It's a collaboration between the Philippine Academy of Acupuncture and the World Association for Psychosocial Rehabilitation Philippines, of which I am a proud board member. I am certain that all of us will be able to relate to what our experts will have to say in the course of this forum. There is now a global call for us to regard mental health as everyone's business. But of course, beyond all this, we need to humbly acknowledge that there is a greater being, an almighty being, who will guide us through. So at this point, we need to ask for his grace and guidance. May I ask everyone to please close their eyes, okay? And then put ourselves in the holy presence of the Lord as I lead everyone to prayer. Father, you are our compassionate provider. We open ourselves today for your blessings and abundance. Help us to open our hearts and ears to the needs and cries of others. Lead us to ways to be a magnet of blessings to others and to help them declare your glory. This we ask in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen. All right. So, Mr. Jackson Tan, are we ready? We will proceed with the singing of the Philippine National Anthem at this point. So may I ask everyone to just please stand as we respect the Philippine flag.
No sound, no sound.
So,
Walang sound.
Walang sound, Nadia.
No, Nadia,
yes.
no sound.
Mr. Jackson, sa kanila yon sa PAAI.
Jackson, no sound. Jackson.
Yeah, Jackson.
Oh. Wait.
There, okay. Okay. All right, let's all relax. all be seated. Okay. So before I call on a distinguished member of the board of PAAI to do his opening remarks, please allow me to introduce myself first. I am Nadia Trinchera. I sit in the WAPR board as treasurer. So I am tasked to manage all the finances of our organization, but at the moment, well, I have nothing to manage. I only manage so much funds because we also, our funds are also bleeding, so we need help. So this is a good way to be able to reach out to everyone. So at this point, may I now call on the director of the Philippine Academy of Acupuncture to give his opening remarks, Dr. Mike Vergara.
Hello.
Hello.
I hope you can hear me. Yeah.
Yes.
Good afternoon. It is a beautiful Saturday afternoon. I hope and I pray everyone's okay. Okay. First of all, thank you. Thank you guys for coming together. The WAPR, no, it sounds almost like a something you ordered in a drive-through. Yes, no. Thank you, WAPR and PAAI for coming together in these times where we are very challenged. Cooperation is the key, really. Whether we're fighting the COVID crisis or whether we want to move forward, educate people, and like we're doing this afternoon. Again, welcome to all the healers out there. Whether you're doctors in the medical profession, mothers, or otherwise. Thank you for coming and joining. Also for those watching through YouTube. Again, thank you for coming and participating in this. It is a time where we all need to get together, arm ourselves with more knowledge, arm ourselves with more skills in order to tackle our impending and the challenges that we face today. Thank you very much for that. We have two wonderful speakers today. The first one is my favorite UP College professor. Hi, Lulu. And we have also Dr. Rudi, will be speaking later. I don't know what the arrangement will be when it comes to asking questions and all. I'll leave that up to you, Nadia, and Jackson. But again, I won't make it too long. I just want to say thank you, people, for cooperating. This is the way to go. This is the way for us to move forward. Let this not be the first and only joint forum between WAPR and PAAI, because this, as earlier mentioned, mental health, mental stress, nowadays is really soaring. You'll see that there's more violence, in-house violence, actually, domestic violence, more suicide coming up, more sleepless nights like I had last night, until such time that I spent only 5 minutes praying, and when I put my head back in the pillow, I fell asleep immediately. That was when the sun was up. So it's real. The issue of mental health is real. It's here. It might get worse. So it's high time that we address this in our practices. So again, for the last time, I'll say thank you very much. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Mike Vergara. So let me also thank our partner, the Philippine Academy of Acupuncture, for hosting this webinar, and to my counterpart in PAAI, Mr. Jackson Tan, who happens to be the treasurer also of PAAI. Thank you for helping us navigate this new technology we now call Zoom. This is so nice. We don't have to be stressed out running after everyone and down and navigating the traffic on the road. So what a wonderful way to get together. All right, now for the, let me just guide you on how we will go about the Q&A later on. Let's finish first with the two presentations, after which you can, for those of you who would like to address their or ask questions, you may just raise your hand and then we'll put you, Jackson will guide you, or for the others, they can just type in their question via the chat box.
Miss Naja, sorry. You're muted. Can you unmute your microphone? Okay, that's good.
Am I good?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. So were you able to catch up with the Q&A procedure?
Maybe refrain for 5 to 10 seconds. We missed maybe 5 to 10 seconds of your time.
Okay. Again, going back to the Q&A, for those of you who would like to address or ask questions to the speakers, just raise your hand. Jackson will be able to see you. And then the rest, you can just type in your question on the chat box. Make sure you have your name and your email address so we can keep track. All clear? So let me just do a recap of the first session that you had last month in July. During the first webinar, we focused on the need for self-care in mental health in the midst of this pandemic. Now, for this second session, we are following through with inputs on the effects of isolation on one's mental health, which now brings us to the theme of our joint forum, which is beautifully worded as isolated but not alone. And before I'm so honored to introduce our esteemed speaker for this afternoon. But before I call on her, let me just say a few words about our speaker. She obtained her Doctor of Medicine degree from the University of the Philippines. She was also conferred the title Professor Emeritus in Psychiatry in the College of Medicine of the said University of the Philippines. She now sits in the Philippine Council for Mental Health, representing WAPR as the lone NGO member to the council. For everyone's information, I would just like to share this with you. One integral provision in the Philippine mental health law that was passed in 2018 is the creation of the Philippine Council for Mental Health. It will now be the policy-making advisory body on all mental health concerns. So since there is only one seat for the NGO, and that is now taken by WAPR. WAPR is now the voice of all the NGOs and all civil society organizations involved in mental health advocacy. Our speaker also is the founding president of the Philippine Psychiatric Association and the founding president also of our very own WAPR, WAPR. So everyone, ladies and gentlemen, I now pass on the screen to Dr. Lourdes Ignacio. Jackson.
Thank you very much, Nadia. We are among friends. I mean, it's no accident that we are co-sponsoring with PAAI, meeting with Mikey Vergara here, whom I miss so much, and to Chochong, and for us to have been invited to co-sponsor this joint mental health forum is for us in WAPR to be so privileged, because we really want to convey the fact that we are isolated nga, but not alone. This is a paper that I had developed in one of the hospitals where I am connected to, that's Cardinal Santos. And then later on, we decided to really develop the concept here and offer it to other groups. So allow me to develop this paper. It's really mental health, pero ginawa namin ito para sabihin sa inyo na hindi kayo nag-iisa. Next slide, please. That's the picture. And I think you know, in somewhere in the late 2019, that virus was hovering around the world. By February, it was already on top in China and was threatening now the world, until we in the Philippines joined the rest of the world to exist with our masks, because that's what the world is all about now, under the masks. Okay, next slide, please. So we know ourselves to just simply be isolated. And when we decided to respond to it, there was the national response action. We were all subjected to an enhanced community quarantine, the lockdown, to protect those who are still healthy from those who are healthy but have been exposed to an infectious agent. This is a public health approach, but highlights the need for every one of us, every citizen, to be part of the solution. Mabigat, no? Diba? We have to be part of the solution, because the containment of the spread of the virus depends on each and every one of us putting discipline in our lives. We had to contend with the sudden implementation of the strategies for ECQ, especially here in Metro Manila. There was physical and social distancing. We had to really recognize that the quarantine has to start with ourselves. Then the schools closed. Then the workplaces shifted work from ordinary workplaces to homes. Then there was a limitation of mobility, especially because of the fact that there was suspension and inaccessible transformation for most everyone. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The lockdown, balik mo na doon. The lockdown, perceived as a standstill in every Filipino's daily life. March 14, it was announced. By March 15, we realized we were locked down, and really our lives were a standstill. Here in Metro Manila, it was weird to look at the streets so empty. There was an overwhelming feeling of isolation, of feeling alone, and having no control over it. For a majority of us, the routine of daily life previously spent balancing time at home with family and in the workplace outside with others was now blurred. In fact, erased, but must right away be adapted to. Next slide, please. The suddenness of the impact of the event, the ECQ, in the face of this indescribable uncertainty of the nature of COVID-19, generated psychosocial consequences on the daily lives of the people and their communities. The psychosocial stresses revolve around the reality of uncertainty. We didn't even know what this virus was all about. We didn't know how this is really going to be eradicated at this point in time, especially in mid-March to late March. There still was a whole lot of uncertainty, interestingly enough, up to now, but we're gaining more and more knowledge about it. But we also had to really contend with a feeling of isolation, pain, suffering, which generated anxiety and depression. Next slide, please. The ECQ as a response for COVID-19 pandemic really addresses the needs of the majority of the population, a lot of us who are healthy and who must be separated from those who are either healthy but exposed to 19 or those who already are infected. So there was the recognition that these psychosocial stresses must be met with programs that must be directed and prioritized to promote the psychosocial well-being of everyone and those at risk, without prejudice to those who must be treated but who are still in the minority. At that point in time, we had something like 5,000 infected, but there still was the rest of the 100 million of us who was still there, still okay. Next slide, please. There are two words that I'd like to clear with you. I said there was anxiety and there was depression. Anxiety is a person's specific reaction to stress, characterized by a persistent feeling of apprehension and dread. But one must look at that anxiety as the signal for the person to generate reactions, physical, psychological, social, and spiritual, to be able to cope. So the person's experience of stress, apprehension, and dread is initially a protective reaction. It protects you, it signals you, so that you'd be able to cope. Next slide. Next slide. Depression is another word that is running around. It is recognized and described as low mood, sadness. There are many negative thoughts, pessimism, a general sense of weakness, helplessness, loss of interest. This is a person's reaction to the feelings of loss. We have lost a lot right away, especially the loss of connectedness because quarantine imposed that on us, and a feeling of loss of control because our usual daily life, the routine, was stopped or was inhibited or was limited. The sadness, the negative thoughts are therefore to be looked at as the signal to recognize the loss, even to mourn the loss, and the inevitable need to change. So depression must be recognized as necessary so that one adapts to the loss. It's almost like when you have a person die, your loved one die, you mourn, you cry, and then when you recognize that he has died, you start adapting to the death and changing your life with the loss in it. So it is really adaptive. So when we're talking about anxiety and depression, they're not right away negative feelings. They're not symptoms of anything. At the time when I was really saying there's going to be an epidemic of anxiety and depression, I'd oftentimes say, hey, look, everybody needs to be anxious and depressed because that's the only way they can really manage this uncertainty and isolation. Anxiety protects you from so much of the impact of the uncertainty because you come up with coping mechanisms, and I'll talk about that later on. And depression, you lose, you feel a mourning because you've lost something. And when you recognize that, then you right away, your own resiliency, and I'm going to talk about that later on, will allow you to adapt to the loss and the need for change. Next slide, please. Right away, the Philippine Council for Mental Health came up with these infographics. There are 4 of these. Right away came up with the Psychosocial Well-Being for Everyone infographics, which is here. If people would like for us to get copies of this, please let us know, either PAAI or the WAPR. We can send this to you, but this has been distributed around the country through the other members of the Philippine Council for Mental Health, the Department of Health, the Department of Education, the Department of Labor, the Department of Local Governments, our friends in the schools, civil service, so the government workers. So this has been distributed, but And I don't have that kind of time at this point in time to go one by one. But if you do really need, just let us know. We will send you these infographics. This was distributed in late March. Next slide, please. We consider those at risk, of course, children, older adults, and the frontliners, the leaders, the decision makers, who often are hidden victims of this pandemic. The infographics include psychosocial well-being for children, psychosocial well-being for older adults, and psychosocial well-being for frontliners, because the demand is we continue to promote psychosocial well-being. We recognize that there could be people who probably might come up with symptoms, but the general rule is really to sustain psychosocial well-being. And I think we're right on target if we are going to partner with you guys in integrative medicine, in acupuncture, because we at WAPR will be pursuing this program also for psychosocial well-being. Next slide, please. So what do I mean psychosocial well-being? In other words, some people say that's mental health, but at this point in time, it really is better to look at it as being well, being healthy, psychosocial well-being, because this is a state when a person is able to experience a sense of wholeness, kabuuan, and peace in daily life. By being able to experience his interconnectedness with fellow human beings, with his community, and with the Supreme Being, which for many Filipinos is identified as God, whom he recognizes as an integral part of his life. Okay, next slide, please. This perspective of health, the state of a person's physical, mental, social, and spiritual well-being puts into focus the undeniable fact that we are all interconnected with those around us and the divine, resulting in us having a sense of equilibrium, being whole and one with the other, and hence of having meaning and purpose and peace. Next slide, please. Next. So what does it mean? Being healthy, being well. We do have this thing here, stay in shape. You're valuable contributor to your community. You're aware of yourself. You have discipline. But the quarantine and its imposition of isolation leaves the person feeling separated. The loss of this interconnectedness. The goal in promoting psychosocial well-being, therefore, is to overcome this separation, to overcome the sense of aloneness in isolation, and become whole and breathe freely. So we achieve kaginhawaan sa buhay, maskit mag-isa. Next slide, please. Let me talk now about some of the things that we need to be aware of within ourselves, because now we're left to really looking into ourselves. We can't expect to find our solutions outside, because the important thing is we're by ourselves, the isolation. Know that there is a person's resiliency. That's a word that is important. The person's ability to regain one's form or one's particular state, to rise from the rubble when there is conflict, to see the light beyond the tunnel, to recover without intervention, and recognize the fact that this is a natural and intrapsychic capacity to recover. So every person has resiliency. It's natural. It's almost akin to intuition, gut feel, something that is within you, you know works beyond reason, but works for you. Okay? So when you recognize that you have that, you cannot feel defeated right away. There is something in you Somebody told me that's probably also to be referred to as that spirit within you, okay, that you know is there. And if you have a little bit more spiritual life, you know that's faith. But there is something in you there, despite whatever crisis and difficulties, because all you need to do is recognize that. And interestingly enough, at this point in time, because we're all really subjected to being by ourselves most of the time, we tend to look inwards. We tend to look at our own selves, reflect, introspect, and try to know ourselves in this sense. And you know that you can identify many things that you're doing on your own without anybody's help. Coping naman is the process a person actively undertake to manage the demands on himself and immediate environment that are considered stressful and considered beyond his ordinary life circumstances. So resiliency is there, but then sometimes the stress is too much, or you are kind of weak because you're sick. You've had coping. You would not have reached a point in your life right now as an adult. You've never had coping mechanisms. Each and every one of us did have coping mechanisms. For those who are really very successful, those must have been fantastic coping mechanisms. But everybody has these coping mechanisms that they have developed to adapt and are determined by his natural ways, ways that have led him to lead a functional life during ordinary times. So when one introspects, one looks at himself, one can identify that he has had various means of coping which is unique to himself and which made him function, in fact, be successful in his ordinary life. So the other thing that will happen, therefore, is when you reflect, know that you have resiliency, then look again into what have you done in the past that did well for you, that helped you cope with crisis, that helped you deal with all these things. Next slide, please. Every person, therefore, has resiliency and coping mechanisms as part of his basic nature. That is his self in this earth. And that is identified as who you are, what are you worth, and how do you regard yourself, that self-esteem. The current prevailing uncertainty, isolation, and suffering from the perceived loss of control and helplessness has redirected our attention inward within our individual selves because the world outside is so unimaginably uncertain and blurred. So this is what we encounter when we try to look inward into ourselves. And oftentimes we know we have no choice because really we have so much time now to really look inward. Next slide, please. Having to redirect ourselves away from what we have been used to, which has been mainly other-directed, mainly in relation to others, and to focus on ourselves has allowed us to appreciate being alone with ourselves, and probably even find that we can be quite satisfied, even happy with ourselves. The reality of the prevailing uncertainty now, simultaneously with the realization that the past has not prepared us and the future is not there yet, has powerfully put this focus on the present, on the here and now, and somehow the self, yourself, can find that you have better control because it is within your reach, your here and now, your 8 to 12 hours of today. And that's oftentimes what we would just simply like to suggest. The past is gone. Really, it's gone. The future is not even there yet. Okay. So the focus is really on the present. Next slide, please. We have somehow sustained ourselves in isolation, therefore, or it's been 4 months. Our basic resiliency has allowed each of us to be flexible enough and adapt to available, accessible ways of connecting with each other in every aspect of our daily lives through the use of a wide range of technology, including what we have now, which has become indispensable in our lives every day. Next slide. Physical and social distancing have been met defiantly in their effects on emotional distancing. We have really not quite done away with emotional distancing because we continue to try to connect. We have availed of all forms of technological aids, gadgets, to meet the needs of emotional connectivity. Yesterday, our friends in WAPR had a birthday party on Zoom for one of us who is now confined in the hospital for being COVID positive. And apparently that celebration was really a lot of fun. We pray with each other. You know, I'm about to go to a wake tonight, and we simply pray on Zoom again because we mourn a friend. We plan projects. You can find in your cell phone or in your iPad all sorts of discounts, so 50% discounts from food to air conditions to cars, all the basic goods through the internet, the cell phones, and the technological age just simply make us get connected. Next slide, please. Let me now share with you what we have had. In the past, we have been commissioned one time by Senator Letty Siahani to undertake a study what's wrong and what's right with the Filipino. And that was part of a moral recovery program that she wanted to pursue during her brother's presidency. Somewhere along the way, I think we were able to convey that, but it got lost again somewhere along the way. But we have held on to the results of that study, which was nationwide. And we identified, and I think you can agree with me up to this time, that the Filipinos' top 3 coping mechanism is spirituality, pananampalataya, a bayanihan spirit, which is our term for community spirit, which is closely linked to family orientation of neighborliness, pakikipagkapwa-tao, and joy and humor, pagiging masaya, with saying that habang may buhay, may saya at pag-asa. You know, you'll find that if you're a member of a Viber group, your professional group, your family, your friends, your neighbors, there can at least be once a week just a lot of jokes. And they'll simply say, time out, we'll just have some laughs. And it eases up. Again, that's going all over the place in our Viber group and Messenger group and Facebook, etc., etc. Next slide, please. Filipinos are basically a powerful people. Their prayers express their deep faith and belief that God is constantly with them in times of crisis. With this, they state, I'm never alone. That concept of a God is not really religion, because you can have your supreme being, whatever religion you have, but that spirituality and that belief in that supreme being somehow gives you faith that you are really not alone. It leads you to comprehend and genuinely accept reality in the context of God's will and plan, and are able to sustain the optimism that He is there and that you will recover. So a prevailing faith experience is strongly felt. And I think we all feel that at this point in time. Next slide, please. Next slide. This is the study that I had said earlier. The survey has categorically stated that the results of a Filipino's faith is courage, daring optimism, inner peace, as well as the capacity to genuinely accept the tragedy, crisis, even death. Let me share with you just a little bit of what's happening in my own clinic among those who come to us, the psychiatrists. You remember that they probably are the busiest people nowadays because people are in anxiety, panic attacks, depression, obsessive compulsive disorders, etc., etc. Over the fear of being infected. My session oftentimes turns to the question from medical facts, and that's why I keep myself abreast too with what's happening with COVID, because I have to address that as a medical doctor to relieve the anxiety of my patient about COVID, but which I end up with saying, you and I are really not sure because our experts are not yet settled. Our vaccines are not there yet. Then the session turns to an existential and spiritual issue. And I ask the patient, are you afraid to die? You might probably be surprised that we give that question. And I do. Next slide, please. This leads to the opening up and eventual realization that indeed our lives, our deaths are not within our control, but that of a supreme being who has given us life. Interestingly enough, really, the patient with me is grateful that I open up the question, are you afraid to die? Because there's really that underlying feeling of being infected to the possibility of death. Yes, because we can see that that's happening too. The resolution to the anxiety and the panic symptoms oftentimes leads to the patient's affirmation of his or her faith, which she or he recognizes she or he has always been interconnected with his fellow human beings, their communities, and with the Supreme Being. Somehow a sense of peace leads to a relief from the apprehension and dread. Through this, the recognition that he or she is not alone, will not be alone, and will not be alone ever. Next slide. It is quite inaccurate to refer to a new normal at the moment. I can't think of a new normal. We have no normal yet. It may just be appropriate to refer to this state as the inevitable changes imposed by the need for quarantine, which threatens our interconnectedness. Next slide, please. It is, however, often said that the real path to change is not in seeking new landscapes, but in simply having new eyes, new ways of looking at the same problem. Next slide, please. And as a parting thing to you, do you know that the first ever mobile phone has always been there from the beginning of time? That's prayer. It always has a signal and it is charged all the time. Next slide, please. Thank you very much for giving us the chance to share with you some thoughts about this pandemic.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Ignacio. As I have announced earlier, we will finish with the two presentations before we open the floor for the question and answer.
Hindi naman na sumagot, pumunta ka na lang. Mamaya, hindi na naman ano.
Jackson, we're hearing. Jackson, we're
May
hearing.
3 p.m. nga daw siya, isisingit ka lang niya. Ang hilig niya ng ganun.
Kindly unmute yourself na lang, Miss Nadia. I muted everyone temporarily. For the speakers, you may unmute yourselves. For the other attendees, kindly be aware if your microphone is not muted, it might disturb the speakers. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Jackson. Okay, so as I have said before, before we started, the Q&A, the chat box, You will have to type in your name and your email ad along with your questions, but we will do that later after our second speaker. So at this point, may I just acknowledge some of the members of the board of PAAI. We have in the house. Okay, we have in the house board member Rochi Kagara. Kindly acknowledge yourself, please. All right, and we also have, of course, my counterpart, Treasurer Mr. Jackson Tan.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello.
Okay, and then the board member who formally opened our session, Dr. Mike Vergara.
Hi, good afternoon.
Again, all right, and we also have the hardworking secretary of PAAI, Letty Abuy, where are you? Letty.
Hello.
Right. Okay.
Hello.
Thank you, Letty.
Thank you. Hello.
Okay, and I would also like to acknowledge the presence of our dear president, our current president of WAPR. That's Miss Lucy Lasso.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. Hi.
I was there the last time, the first webinar. Good afternoon, everybody.
Okay, we'll see you back. We also have another board member, former commissioner of the Civil Service Commission, Commissioner Mary Ann Fernandez Mendoza. Say hi, Miss Mary Ann. Okay, and we also have Dr. Imelda Martin. Dr. Imelda Martin, are you now in Batangas? Okay, another board member, a psychiatrist, Dr. Imelda Martin. Thank you for being with us. And of course, our founding president who just finished her presentation, Dr. Lourdes Ignacio. All right, so we are now moving.
Can we also recognize Dr. Tan Cho Chong as the president of PAAI?
Yes, of course.
Thank you, Mike.
President, yes, the president of PAAI, Dr. Tan Cho Chong, and also a board member of WAPR, Dr. Tan Cho Chong.
Oh, hi.
Okay, another well-known psychiatrist and also founder of an NGO called GAWA, who provides direct assistance to communities to aid recovering drug victims and to the mentally ill. Okay, so we are now getting ready for our next speaker, but we just need to do a little bit of stretching before we call on our next esteemed speaker. Jackson, you wanna?
Yeah, if I may, because some participants are already asking about the infographics Dr. Lu mentioned. If it's possible for you to email me a copy now, if it is, I'll try to post it to everyone present here. Thank you.
Doctora.
Nadja, maybe you could give the email address of WAPR because Jane has the copies.
Okay. Or I can ask our Secretary Jane to right away get in touch with Jackson. So how do you want it, Jackson?
It's actually better if it's okay with you. You can put the email address of WAPR in the chat box, and everybody can actually just
see it.
Email WAPR, and WAPR can automatically send a copy to them.
Except that I don't think I have it. I memorized it.
It's okay. Or maybe after.
Has it. Otherwise,
it's okay.
I'll do that.
Okay.
I'll give mine, then I'll forward it na lang to Nadja. Well, I'll just give mine and then I'll forward it to the WAPR office.
Micah is now typing it on the chat box, so the viewers can see it shortly. Okay, Jackson, we'll carry on. Okay. Dr. Ignacio suggested earlier that before we start with our second speaker, we need to do a little bit of stretching. Just raise your both hands up like this. Okay, stretch. Everyone, do this with me. Okay, raise it up. Okay, stretch out. And then to the side, either to your left or to your right, whichever way you want it. Okay, the other side.
Stretch as much as you can.
Or stretch down as much as you can.
Okay.
Okay, take a deep breath. All right, okay. So, I am prepared to call on our second esteemed invited speaker.
Mr. Jackson, can I share my slides from my end? I'd like to share from my end, my slides. Is that okay?
Sorry, I'm muted pala. Yes, you may. You may share from your end. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So our second speaker for this afternoon earned his Doctor of Medicine degree from the St. Louis University all the way up in Baguio. You're now in Baguio, sir, doctor.
Yes, I am.
All right. And he had his Masteral of Public Health Distance Education in the University of the Philippines, Open University. And then he also had his Masteral of Management from the University of the Philippines in Baguio. And he has held a position as medical officer in the National Commission on Indigenous People, whereby he provided needed medical services to indigenous populations all over the Mountain Province. So may I now call on our next speaker, Dr. Rodolfo Tabora, all the way from Baguio City. Doctor, you have the floor. You have the screen.
Is my screen on?
Yes.
Is my screen on?
Yes, doctor, it's already on. You can share from your side.
I'll take off from the talk of Dr. Lulu, where she mentioned two words, well-being, wellness. So my portion would be to discuss well-being in our everyday life and how to find the silence in this tumultuous world that we are right in now. I come from the perspective of a Zen practitioner with whom I practice with Dr. Lulu and other participants who are online. Ginhawa is the Filipino indigenous term for well-being. To reach or come to a state of well-being, we put ourselves in silence and specifically focus on the breath. In Filipino, the hininga or the breath is life. Ang hinga ay ang buhay. If we can put the breath in harmony with silencing the body and silencing the mind, we come to the core of being with oneself, alone in meditation. Sitting meditation or Zazen. Zazen, Za is to sit and Zen is meditation. There are three components which are involved. Specifically, number one is silencing the body. The posture is very important. We sit at the front edge of our chairs where we are right now, feet flat and parallel, shoulder width apart, the back is straight, which is very important, ears in line with the shoulders, tip of the nose in line with the navel. Relax the shoulders, relax the arms. Then, when it comes to the eyes, the question is, what do we do with our eyes when we sit in meditation? The ideal is to look up ahead, then gaze downwards towards the floor. The eyes are half closed, looking at the point on the floor, which is not hard, but what we would describe as soft gaze. The lips are closed, the jaws are relaxed, the tip of the tongue slightly touching upward the front teeth. We swing our body right and left, the upper portion, right and left like a pendulum.
So we don't see a PowerPoint. We don't see a PowerPoint.
Okay.
Jackson, can we do something, Jackson?
We'll have, yeah.
Can you see it now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, okay. Can I proceed?
Yes.
Yes, Doc, please.
Okay. And what do we do with our hands? That's another question. We come to the 7 points of meditation postures. If you're sitting on the floor, it's cross-legged. The hands are on top of the left and two thumbs touch together. The back is straight, which is very important. The shoulder balance, neck is straight, eyes semi-closed or open, tongue sticking up. If we are now sitting in a chair, this would be the position or the posture which we can take. Take note that you are not resting the back on the back part, but rather there is a space between yourself, your body, and the back of the chair, and that the eyes, the ears in line with the shoulders and with the hips. The eyes are gazing downward towards the floor. And this is the posture of the hand. Make a letter C with your right hand and put it on top of your thighs. And then another C with your left hand and put it on top of the right hand. The thumbs are joined together as if you're holding a piece of paper in between your thumbs. The back, the points to consider are the back and the thumbs and the eyes. If you're sitting in a chair, see to it that the hips are higher than the knees. Because if it's the other way around, the tendency is the back will have a hard time. So you can also put your feet under the chair. The important part is that you maintain the upper straightness of the back. We come to the third portion, which is silencing the mind. And in order to silence the mind, to quiet it down, we focus on the breathing. The breathing is the bridge which connects our life to our consciousness, which unites our body to our thoughts. The breath connects the thoughts with the body, and in the practice of meditation, we pay particular attention in paying attention to breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. By paying attention to the breath, this anchors us to the present moment. And when we breathe, the breathing is from the hara or the tandien or the dantien, which is 2 or 3 inches below the abdomen or below the navel. And the breathing is focused and brought down to the belly, or the described as the belly breathing, where the movement of chi moves up and down from side to side, inside and outside, circulating the chi all over the body. That is why we put the hand in that area in the dantian. For beginners, and that is all of us, you may follow me as I read the instructions. Inhaling slowly, exhaling 1. Inhaling slowly, exhaling 2. Inhaling slowly, exhaling 3. We do this up to we reach the number 10. But more often than not, the simple act of counting the breaths is a challenge because we are often distracted by thoughts about the future or distracted by thoughts about the past, which is gone. So when we notice, when we become alert, when we become aware that our attention has been distracted from counting the breath, we gently go back to 1, 2, and 3, and work our way up to 10, repeating the cycle as we keep on going for the time duration that we've decided to do so. Mindfulness of the body, remember that there are 4 cardinal positions of the body, of which we can practice meditation. Meditation on the floor, taking the postures of putting your legs crossed together, or in our case, we would be sitting in a chair. This is Zazen. There is also standing meditation where the hands are put in front of the abdomen or in the back, and this is called Ju-Zen or standing meditation. Again, the common denominator is the breathing. So meditation cannot be practiced only in the sitting posture, but can also be standing, waiting for somebody in line, in the bank, in the supermarket, waiting for your turn, waiting for a ride. Another posture of the body which we take is the body in motion, the body in movement. For example, in walking, we also have a practice of walking meditation or kin-hin, where we deliberately pay attention to the way we walk, 1 foot in front of the other. And for the others in the group, there is also meditation in the resting position. Most of you who are in the acupuncture services, I presume most of the points will be in the lying down position. So here is a practice where we can teach or share the practice of breath awareness to our clients or patients as they are lying down there for 30, 45 minutes. So meditation can actually be practiced anywhere. the thing that is important is that you set aside the time and the place and pay attention, no matter how short, 1, 2, 3 breaths. And if you can prolong it on a longer basis, so much better. Preferably integrate meditation practice in daily life where we become silent with ourselves. And when we are silent with ourselves, then we come to a state of being at peace. We are all stuck in the house. There is nowhere to go. We are all stuck on doing nothing. So, make the doing nothing productive. Make it the art of doing nothing, the art of paying attention. If you're able to do this for 5 to 10 minutes each day, preferably upon waking up, so much the better. If we can do this simple practice of meditation, then we can contribute to our well-being. If we come to the point of being aware and focused on our breathing, being still in that silence of the body, in the silence of the mind, the body is rested in the present moment, we come to be comfortable with being alone, with all the distractions that come in and out of our head. Meditation is a mindfulness practice. It is the art of being fully present in the here and the now. Mindfulness means paying attention on purpose in a particular way in the present moment, where we are focused on the body, on the breathing, on our thoughts and our emotions in a non-judgmental and accepting attitude. Meditation facilitates our being alone, which is the time which can be used for us to regenerate, to retreat, to recharge, to regain composure. And in doing so, even for a very short period of time, we are able to come to the point of ginhawa, or wellness, or well-being. And as a parting shot, I will give this 10 minutes of meditation a day keeps the psychiatrist away. Part of my joining is to guide you through the process of how do we meditate in our daily life. All of us at this point are sitting in a chair. Allow me to invite you to take a posture where you are not seated with your back to the back part of the chair, but rather in front. And let me go back to the slide.
Sitting. More.
Here. Okay? We're all seated in a chair right now. So sit at the forward edge of your seat and see to it that if it is your knees are higher than the hips, you may put a pillow pillow underneath your chair so that you elevate the hips. In elevating the hips, the back begins to stretch upward. Every now and then, I will use a bell to, it helps if you want to make it, if you want to make it, it helps to utilize a timer. So this one I've set to 10 minutes. Everybody has a timer. The important thing is that we set aside, we put time, we invest in the 10 minutes a day to sit. We describe it as sitting. We begin, I will set it now. We begin by swaying the upper body from left to right. Swaying the upper body from left to right. Eyes are gazing downward off the screen, but towards the keyboard. The eyes are rested, looking downward. It is not a hard gaze, but a soft gaze. I will begin with 3 bells. Breathing in slowly, exhaling 1. Breathing in slowly, exhaling 2. Inhaling, exhaling 3. Continue to do so until you reach 10. Focus on breathing into the abdomen. Whatever comes up in your mind, let it arise and let it go. Inhaling, exhaling. Return your attention to just breathing. Always start your counting. If you've been distracted by a thought about the past or the future, acknowledge it. Be aware of that. And bring your attention back to 1. 2. 'Bring your attention back to your breathing. Stay there. Notice the abdomen going up and down. Your attention is in your belly. Be with the breath. If impatience comes in, acknowledge and bring your attention back to your breathing. Time out, recharge, regain composure by counting the breathing. Inhaling 1, exhaling 2. If you're feeling drowsy, slightly open the eyes and bring it down again to the floor. You are awake. You are alert. You are aware. Mindful of your breath. Mindful of your posture, that your back is straight. Bring your attention back to your breathing if you've been distracted. Resist opening your eyes and looking at the screen. Maintain your posture and your eyesight downwards. This is the time to just be. That will end the first session. Usually, the question is, when is a good time to sit? Anytime is a good time to sit. As you notice, as in the screen I told you, the good time is in the morning, before your day starts. And mind you, 10 minutes a day is a mere 0.01% of our daily life. But that 1% can and may influence the rest of the 99% of the day. How can we share this practice with people? Those of you who are acupuncturists and with your clients, guide them through the breath awareness. Guide them through breath counting. You know, it's so simple to do that, but it's hard. Okay? So, Nadia, I'll turn over the page to Nadia, because after this, there's the optional another 10 minutes or even a Q&A. the point is that we can, if you meditate, if you can breathe, if you can pay attention, anywhere, anytime, you can be in that meditative mode. If you have time for Facebook or Zoom, you have time to sit. You just have to prioritize sitting. And off the cushion, prioritize paying attention, which is easier said than done, but it is a practice. If we take to this practice of sitting, putting ourselves in silence, we come to the point of being comfortable being alone. For those of us who have our own places, that would be no problem. You just have to prioritize sitting in your life. I turn it over to Nadia.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rudi Tabora. Okay,
If I may add, I also go through acupuncture sessions. And I saw one person in the group who is Lynn Ramo. She is my acupuncturist in Baguio. I've been going through acupuncture in Manila on a monthly basis, which stopped because of the COVID. So I am lucky that I have Lynn and her colleagues to continue the sessions with me in Baguio. And since I'm there lying down on the bed with the pins and needles in my body, there's nowhere to go, there's nothing to do, then I use the time to practice meditation. I focus on my breathing. So here is a practice which you can share with your clients. I don't know if government has allowed face-to-face sessions with acupuncture now, because my acupuncture is stopped. So now I'm here. I'm lucky with Lynn that I can still continue. Nadia?
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Tabora. Dr. Tancho Chong, you might want to address Dr. Tabora's question about if you are able now to do face-to-face practice on acupuncture, because he said in Baguio it has stopped completely.
Well, of course, many acupuncturists stop face-to-face acupuncture, doing acupuncture, but there are some doing it. Like I think Dr. Mike Vergara, are you doing it? Doing acupuncture? Mike?
Yes, I am. Oh.
So some are still.
Yes. Yeah, but I still use full gear. Okay, I have my my PPE, yeah, my mask, a face shield, and gloves.
All right. Okay. Thank you. May I just acknowledge a former board member of the Philippine Academy of Acupuncture, Ms. Janet Paredes in the house, and also with NADA. That's the acronym is NADA. Okay.
Janet, like something? Not. Janet, welcome.
You need to unmute. Good
afternoon, everyone.
Okay. Can you say something about NADA?
NADA?
No,
yes.
I just want to address the question of Dr. Tabora. In my case, I am a certified acupuncturist, by TOH PITAP, but since March of this year, I have stopped practicing, because it really depends on the size of your clinic. No, I have a small clinic in Katipunan, and there is a lot of renovation that has to be done, or I'm already past senior, so I decided not to do acupuncture for the meantime, and had to talk to the owner of the building. Now, with regards to NADA, the National Acupuncture Detoxification Association, Lynn is also a member of NADA, and some other uh, acupuncturists here in this group. We have started using the magnetic beads for depression, anxiety, stress, and trauma. And I met Professor Lasso in last year's PAAI conference, and we were hoping to do a study, regarding this. Right now, we have started, the board have started to do some literature review to be able to do ear magnets or later ear acupuncture for anxiety. I just gave a talk this morning on the use of ear acupuncture and other points for anxiety, because majority, I think, of acupuncturists right now are unable to do face-to-face. We're on MECQ right now, so you really cannot, especially if you're a senior, it's very difficult to get out of the house. So we just stay at home. So through the Zoom, we're able to teach the magnets. There are points on the ear where you can use magnetic beads or seeds to help in the household of families experiencing a lot of anxiety, depression, and stress and trauma. And I just want to inform the group that I'm also a pastoral counselor at the Center for Family Ministry in Ateneo, wherein we have started since May doing telecounseling. So we get a lot of clients who are depressive, have a lot of anxiety, and we combine the magnetic beads, the seeds, and telecounseling as of now. So the NADA group has been very active nationwide, really proposing and teaching the use of the magnetic beads for anxiety. It's just 1 point at the back of the ear, and that keeps us busy right now, because we cannot do face-to-face treatment yet, because you have to have, like what Dr. Mike was saying, you have to have a PPE, face mask, face shields, you should be wearing gloves, and that's going to be very difficult, especially for seniors and past senior aging population. So that's it.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Ms. Janet Paredes. May I also acknowledge the two past presidents of the Association of Philippine Orthodontists. We have them in the house, Dr. Diana Lim and Dr. Ramona Locsin. Thank you for joining us. So, Jackson, we are now moving on. We are opening the floor, moving on to our Q&A. So may I remind everyone that if you are going to send your questions through the chat box, please type in your complete name along with your email address so we can follow through later on after the session. But right now, anyone, feel free to raise your questions and whatever insights you might want to share.
We have one question here from our live viewers from YouTube. Although it does not have complete information as to who is the one asking the question, but it's from PDH Catanduanes. Good afternoon po. how do we manage quarantine fatigue, especially amongst our LSIs? Thank you. Only one question. So how do we manage quarantine fatigue? Would our esteemed doctors want to answer the question? Yeah, our speakers.
I'll take that.
Okay, Dr. Lulu.
Is the one who asked the question still around?
Actually,
No?
we can try to check. They're from Catanduanes.
Yeah,
Our participants
because
from Catanduanes, if you are still here, maybe you can type something on the chat box for us to see. Go ahead, Dr. Lulu.
Because really, I will need a little bit more detail to be able to answer that, since I always hear this, I'm so sick and tired of being isolated at home, you know, this kind of thing. I wonder whether that's really what's meaning. I'm so fatigued with quarantine, and there's no one size fits all answer here. It is really in terms of the individual person, how he is dealing with the, as I said earlier, it's imposed on us. I mean, it's blurring our lives. It suddenly made our daily routine so unclear. And we need to gather a lot of our resiliency and our creativity to be able to handle. That's why I was emphasizing to handle the present moment, you know, because yesterday was different, or 2 months ago was very different. And what do you know in the future? None either. I mean, you know, even the economists now are scaring us because they're looking into the lowering of our GDPs, you know, this kind of, the news from Laguna is bothersome because those factories out there are having COVID infected people, and we are quite overwhelmed. So we really just have to even deal with those notes. And oftentimes we get sick and tired of this news also, you know, because I hardly listen to the news except for the official DOH and my hospital's figures at this point in time. But even that can really be so overwhelming. Pagod na ako. I mean, is that pagod na ako? Is that fatigue? Or is that for that particular person hitting a point where the sense of helplessness is not quite manageable anymore? I mean, I'm looking at it from Catanduanes at may bagyo na naman dumarating doon. You know, ito na naman, you know, bagyo plus pandemic, etc., etc. So I think that the answer there is really to get a hold of the self. Just try as best you can to handle the present moment. And maybe what my friend Rudi Tabora has suggested, find 5-10 minutes to really sit in a position where your body can be quiet. You can put your eyes down. You can now start counting the breath and just be there at that present moment. Generally, I do that. I'm also a practitioner of Zen meditation. And generally, I handle my own self that way. When things go rough, I just find that particular moment. And I think my friend Rudi Tabora had illustrated it enough. But he and I, who have really been practicing for quite some time, can assure you, if you get into that practice of being in the present moment, alone with yourself, with your breath, you can find life, because breath is life. And maybe some other things can evolve out of that. The spirit within, the usual psychological concept of resiliency, the spirit that the Jungians will tell you, spirit within, and you'll be surprised. because that spirit is always alive. So oftentimes our answers get not so much into, and I'm a psychiatrist, not so much into all these things of anti-anxiety thing. I'm glad I heard something about the magnets, because I've been reading about that too, because, and like Rudi, my senior age had led me to finding acupuncture too for the relief of my pains. Okay, but all that is within our reach, among which is the non-expensive, just within ourselves, to find that kind of moment of silence, 5-10 minutes a day. If you can add some more, 5-10 minutes at the end of the day, then you can sleep better.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Here's another question from Macgerald Cueto. Does WAPR do psychological first aid for healthcare frontliners? Also, does WAPR open to train psychological first aid for community health workers and frontliners?
I'll take that, Lucy.
Go ahead, please.
Okay. Psychological first aid is one that is a part of the MHPSS interventions, and that's for emergencies. WAPR is not quite into that mode of training because of the fact that we know there are other people. The DOH, Department of Education, has been doing a whole lot of these other interventions. The Psychological Association of the Philippines is doing a whole lot of psychological first aid. And I wish, however, though, that we go beyond first aid. That's why WAPR programs, which we have done before the pandemic, WAPR has always been into training of community health workers, barangay health workers, midwives, nurses, doctors in selected areas, which are our projects. We cannot be nationwide, but we're trying to sell the idea. And I think, sold the idea because now the current mental health law has really a provision for every local government to provide mental health services in the communities with or without disasters, because we have looked at mental health care, psychological care as integral in health and social welfare in a community. WAPR has that. We in fact had published a book called Transforming Lives, Mental Health Care of the Community. Our work has been into the post-Yolanda disasters, latest of which is really been there in Samar and Iloilo. But WAPR has been on the forefront of what's been called the Mental Health Task Force in Disaster, created by President Aquino. And so therefore, we have been there since the 90s, and we kind of really take some kind of a position that we help pioneer the integration and the inclusion of psychosocial care in overall disaster management. So, and that psychological first aid is part of that overall psychosocial management. But we are really more into training of community health workers, social workers, in integrating mental health care, not just first aid, really going through the range of the kinds of mental health problems that have not yet been treated in the communities that are starting to get treated right now. And if we had not been caught up by the pandemic, we at the Philippine Council for Mental Health would probably have started already some of the capacity building programs for community health care to integrate mental health care at that level of care. But we have not stopped. We're just going slowly because the Department of Health still has, we have to understand, they're still very much overwhelmed by the need to contain the virus, by the need to provide the resources for this. But we probably going to be there. Mental health law mandates us to deliver mental health care at the community level. So WAPR is on the forefront of that. In fact, Ms. Lasso has even another research submitted to determine the competency standards for mental health care by the community health workers. We don't know that. We've been going into that in training, but we have not sat back and say, what is the competence of this? Because I like to think that it's not just first aid that we are going to be delivering. Mental health care is part of the whole social disadvantaged condition of our people.
Maybe I can
Okay.
more. Yeah.
Yeah. We have a question for Dr. Tabora.
Yeah. No, but originator to lose a comment. I think if there is, I see that there is a real demand now for, well, we call it training, but some kind of intervention for the frontline health workers. I think if the group, this is a question from the Catanduanes group, no? I would welcome them indicating to us if there's a critical mass of them, for example, that can form a group or a cluster, we can probably work with them so we can have a customized training program or some form of intervention. As Lulu was saying, we were going slow on it, partly because of the COVID restrictions. But I think it's a good time as any to actually initiate and design a program that responds to the specific needs and circumstances of the health workers. Now I do see that there is a real demand for support and assistance to the health frontline health workers. We may not necessarily call it a psychological first aid because the tendency is if you say first aid, parang band-aid. That's not what we want. We want more continuing, sustained kind of intervention that will help the health workers in the long term. Yeah, so I believe it at that. I had a question for Dr. Tabora. I put it in the chat, no? So let him
But Nadia, let me just finish with Lucy. Okay. For the questionnaire from somebody in Catanduanes, WAPR also had undertaken a project in Infanta Quezon after the mudslide disaster. And what we have gone further, and we're about to really help them again by early September, maybe this is a WAPR program, is we had trained them now to telepsychiatry. You know, so the trained health workers that we have had in the last 10 years since the mudslide disaster have sustained our training on a face-to-face. But then we need to continue on. And I think they have gone with the DOH telemedicine services. So they'd like now for us to undertake the same training with them. We call now telementoring, because we will be mentoring those trained health workers from Manila to Reinapan, Real, Infanta, General Nakar, and the islands in Polillo, 2 provinces in Polillo. And that will really, that might come on because that interlocal health zone there is quite serious to use the resources of telepsychiatry now, for them to use the modules we've had, but for us to mentor them in the delivery of their care. That's also WAPR initiative. So if you keep in touch with us, maybe Lucy, who's a very active president of WAPR, can really just put this all, tuhugin na lang namin itong mga ito.
Dr. Lulu, the one who asked the question a while ago is still here with us. She's Dr. Maria Teresa Mariano from Catanduanes.
Wow, hi.
Health Officer of Pandan.
Can you leave her email address because maybe we can get them already into one of, well, WAPR is about to launch a study that will document the impact the pandemic on mental health. Because we keep talking about it, but the evidence base is not well documented. No, so WAPR would like to get into that so that we have a solid base. Now, we can work with the Catanduanes group and document the experience of the frontline health workers. So that will give us some kind of evidence base, and we can do this with the others who are interested. So if Doctora is willing to leave her email, I can probably communicate with her. We are designing an online survey questionnaire that will generate this kind of data and hopefully lead us to frame some policy and practical recommendations, which might even lead to advocating with the local chief executives and with the LGU so that they can take more action. So I'll leave it at that. Maybe we should follow through.
Can I follow through? Because now the Doctora from Catanduanes, I'm afraid I missed you. But I just remember that in PGH, a year or two ago, we graduated one of your doctors, and she will be returning to Virac to practice her psychiatry there. And I took particular attention for her to learn what we are doing in our community mental health care work. So I'm not, sorry, her name escapes me now. But if you keep in touch with WAPR, I can very well really identify this psychiatrist. And you probably will not need me anymore because she's been trained in PGH. We have a community and social psychiatry program there. And that's really the program that we would like to contain the local psychiatrists helping the local health services deliver the mental health care programs.
Dr. Lulu, Miss Janet Paredes would want to share something also on the first question.
Yeah.
Janet?
Yeah. When you were talking about first topic on yung question po nung taga Catanduanes regarding fatigue, no? Regarding quarantine fatigue, yes. And this particular portion that Dr. Tabora has shared on meditation, I think is very, very important. And it's also very nice to integrate it to the practice of acupuncturists, no? Because in the course of following up the PAAI chat group, no, this is the first time I think that meditation can well be integrated, and I think that's very important, no? And regarding the quarantine fatigue that the person from Catanduanes was saying, what we did was what we suggested to other persons who had depression or anxiety and was experiencing very similar signs and symptoms of quarantine fatigue. Like what Dr. Ignacio said, it's really taking things one day at a time, living simply, and I mean, it cannot be a complicated situation. You cannot leave a complicated situation now. And what I wanted to say was, and I also share this in other groups, is you also have to start a routine every day, no? Starting a routine wherein being with family, doing your regular exercise. And when we talk about traditional Chinese medicine, the diet is very important, the exercise is very important. And these days, I mean, when we're all locked down in our homes, the diet of it's not just a balanced diet, but maintaining more of a vegetable diet. Because when we take in a lot of meat and there are pent-up emotions and you're just inside the house, I think Dr. Tan Chu Chong and other acupuncturists would say that, I mean, it's building up a lot of heat inside and there's going to be an imbalance in the energies of an individual. And so it's very important that, I mean, para hindi ka maiinis, maiirita, magiging irritable, galit. Diet, exercise is very important so that the chi or the energy of a person will not get stagnated, and you have to move. No, it cannot be that you're just sitting down in the computer, especially if you attend Zoom meetings and if you're doing online studies. So there is a whole gamut of uh, ways and means to maintain uh, good health at this time. And I think what Dr. Tabora gave us today is very important, because that should be on a regular basis. No, in Manila, I used to attend Sister Chayong's group, Zen meditation in RGS. Pero lockdown, no? So ang hirap. So we just have to continue it at home once you have started it. And living a good lifestyle is very important. Family life at this time and family support system is very important. No, there can be some irritation inside the family, but if there is good communication and a lot of kumustahan and asking our own family members how they feel about this, no, magiging maganda yung samahan. And just be very, very particular about or observant about behavior inside the house if you're a family of 5 or 6, so that it can be worked out or mababantayan mo talaga, because ang dami namin cases ngayon na ganyan sa SEPAM that you really have to be very, very particular about. So I think meditation can be integrated in the PAAI in the studies and in the practice of each acupuncturist. No? And Dr. Ignacio, I'm just very curious about what you said about telepsychiatry, and you're now integrating this in the barangay or health workers, and this is a very good move that we're now really going through the grassroots, and we're teaching this to them. No, is this regardless of educational background or what have they learned in the past? And that's a good move, no? Especially in the Infanta, Nakar, Polillo areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I would like to direct this question to Dr. Tabora. It's from Nepril de la Serna. What the question is, what is the ultimate object of meditation? Dr. Tabora.
When people come to seek meditation, they have an objective. So the way we approach it is to ask them up front, why do you want to meditate? What is your motivation to meditate? Because your motivation and your intention becomes the objective of which you come into the practice. So usually there are 4 approaches. The first approach is, oh, I'm curious. I've heard about meditation. I've read about it. I've seen images about meditation. I want to try it. So the first step is usually curiosity. So we share the practice, the very basic, simple, keeping quiet, body, breath, and mind together in one place in one time. But people also come for a different reason. People want to practice meditation because they've heard that meditation contributes to well-being, especially now where there is so much disturbance. People want to seek states of being where you can be healed of that suffering. People come for meditation has been proven for health benefits, a lot of it. The third approach would be, I'm okay, but I want to deepen. I want to deepen my practice. I want to find more into what this whole life is all about. what this suffering is all about. Then they also come to meditation. The higher approach would be, I want to know the questions in life. The existential questions. Who am I? What am I here for? Why is all this suffering going on? Why is this happening to me? People who are already inclined to go into religious practice, they have a tendency to seek more. There are people who have faith but still want to get in more. So the question, what is the ultimate objective? It will really depend on why you want to meditate. And the real bottom line of any meditation is to answer the question, who am I? To find out who I am. And meditation becomes a tool to come to that state of, this is me, this is who am I, or I want to meditate because my blood pressure is 150 over 90 or 110. I want to lower it. I'm too anxious. I've heard that meditation can help deal with my anxiety. Then that can be an objective of why people want to meditate. People can't go to the hospitals. People can't go do their usual things. That is what's really difficult nowadays, because all what we're used to is gone. And how do we handle that? First, on a personal level, that has happened to me, and it's still happening. So the question is, how do I deal with my anxiety, with my quarantine fatigue? I'm glad to have come upon a practice which is meditation. One of the attitudes which are helpful is that when you meditate, you learn to accept what is currently right in front of your nose. To accept. Because when we come to accept what is in front of our nose, when we pay attention to that, then we are in a position to handle the situation better. When we have grips on what we can do, when we become aware that right now I'm antsy, even just that alone, that acceptance of that mindfulness of I'm antsy, I'm having all these anxiety attacks, because when we pay attention to that mental state, then we're able to get a grip of how we are doing in the moment. So I hope that answers the question. What is the ultimate?
Okay. Yes, beautiful, doctor. Just a follow-up to that, there's another question. Okay, here it is. If a person has a restless mind and prone to overthinking and cannot focus even to breathe, what other type of meditation can you recommend aside from Zen?
Okay, let's put Zen aside as one of the modalities of Zen practice. Let's put it meditation, sitting, or pagmumuni. Very integral to everyday life is the breath. The breath, for as long as we are alive and for as long as we are breathing, the thoughts will always come up. That is the nature of life. If you're breathing, thoughts will come up. So to the question is, how can an anxious person even dare to practice meditation when the mind is all over the place? Reality, our mind is all over the place. It just comes home, becomes more obvious that our mind is all over the place. when we sit down to practice, let me put it, give you a, okay, everybody has seen a snow globe, okay? On a daily basis, this is what happens to us. Thoughts, anxiety, depression, what's going to be happening next. Like, because of that constant mind that is constantly moving, that is constantly bombarded by thoughts and feelings, if we come to the point of quiet, what we need to do is to make that body quiet. Literally, make it quiet. Eventually, another thought will come up. If we are able to devote ourselves time for that, even the acceptance of that right now, I am anxious. That is an acknowledgement. That is an acknowledgement. But if there's a follow-up question while you're sitting down in meditation is, can I do anything about it right now? Most likely, no. You can't do anything about being anxious right now. What you want to be quiet? Start counting your breath. Make the mind settle down. Make the mind settle down in the present moment, even if you're being bombarded by anxious thoughts about the future or thoughts about the past. Learn to make the mind still. Practice meditation which aids in stilling that mind. That is why the posture is very important. Preferably a posture which is not moving, a posture which is not disturbed. Just like this class. Eventually, the thoughts, the feelings, the emotions will settle down. You have to make it quiet. If it's disturbed by another thought, then allow another time to make it quiet. Deal with the anxiety as you're feeling it. That is what being mindful is all about. Mindful of our thoughts, mindful of our feelings, mindful of our emotions as we experience them. We pay attention to that. You know, like watching a concert. They turn off the lights in the concert hall and direct it to the person performing. In our case, if we direct our attention to what is happening in the moment, give it that space, allow that space to settle in, then we have the opportunity to come to that space of quiet. All of us right now have keyboards in front of our computers, in front of our gadgets. What is the most important key in a keyboard? It is the space bar. Without that space bar, and you put all your words together in one line, you will not make ends or tails out of it. The value of meditation comes in rediscovering that space bar. Being in that space between thoughts and feelings, and in that space is a blank space. It is a quiet space. That is what we're doing in meditation. we are not stopping the thoughts. That will never happen. For as long as we breathe, the thoughts will always be there. But what we can do is to create space between the thought, between the feeling, and just rest in that space. And why the breath? Rest the breath because we are always breathing in the present tense, in the present moment. The breath has no future. The breath has no past. The breath is always present. Thoughts have that quality. Thoughts have the quality of always going forward, which brings anxiety. You don't know what's going to happen. Or thoughts will come back to the past. You can't do anything about that either. Meditation is training. More than anything else, I would find that meditation is the art of paying attention. And preferably, if you can pay attention in a seated posture, counting your breath, then you have the skill. Then you have the training. Then we can teach or share a practice to everybody that we can come to that non-anxiety phase. I think that.
Okay, thank you. Time check, we are 6 minutes past 4. Jackson, do we still have time? We have about 3 more questions, 3-4 more.
Yes, Miss Naj, we can quickly go through those 3 questions, I think.
Okay. Okay. For Dr. Lulu, okay, from Rose Gonzalez. Doctora, do you have ready CPGs? It's an acronym, CPGs for Primary Care Mental Health. C, Charlie, P as in Papa, G as in golf.
Right.
Anong acronym yan?
Do we have Rose Gonzalez here in the house, in the meeting room?
I have trouble with acronyms, so please spell it out to me.
Clinical practice guidelines.
Yung clinic, Doktora, sa clinical practice guideline po.
Clinical practice guidelines?
Yes.
What?
Guidelines.
Yeah. So the question is, do you have ready clinical
practice
guidelines for primary care mental health?
Not quite yet.
Okay. Ms. Rose Gonzalez?
There are clinical practice guidelines that have been set by the Philippine Psychiatric Association, and those are for the psychiatric conditions or psychiatric disorders that we now follow. The primary health care projects that we have are going to be the subject na nga of a lot of our work, especially at the Philippine Council for Mental Health, because now every local government has been mandated, at least it's in our law, to deliver mental health care at the local level, which means that mental health care is to really be integrated, not as a specialty service, but as part of the general healthcare delivery. So the approach is to really improve the skills of municipal health officers, nurses, midwives, and there is a special provision in the law for barangay health workers. Those are the things that we will have to address. I chair the technical committee on capacity building at the Philippine Council for Mental Health. So that will really be the kind of work that we will be undertaking. I've had background to training of primary health workers because I've been part of this big WHO study to test the feasibility of integrating mental health care, the primary health care level. And at that point in time of the WHO study, which included us among 7 developing countries, we said that we are going to be able to integrate that, and it will be cost effective if we train existing health workers to make it part of their basic skills. to be able to listen, to be able to identify selected mental health problems at that level of care in the barangay and in the municipalities. Those have been set already as with evidences. Each of us have had training modules for this. The book I mentioned earlier, Transforming Lives, Mental Health Care of the Community, is the book that we use in here in our projects, WAPR, this. And it's about to get contextualized in the context of, you probably understand, the MH gaps, which is a WHO study or a WHO tool also for integrating mental health care at that level of care. But we have not reached the level where we would really be able to come up with clinical practice guidelines yet. We are in the birthing stage of the program nationwide. Projects have been undertaken, but they remain projects like WAPR. It's in several areas, but the results of these projects will be useful for doing it as a policy.
Rose Gonzalez.
Thank you po.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Another
Thank
question.
you po. Very promising po yung sinabi ni Doktora.
Where are you coming from, Rose?
I'm from the Department of Health. That's why I'm interested kasi baka pwede ho yung mga strategies to
which division are you from the DOH?
This mental health problem at the level barangay. Sa policy po, sa Health Policy Development and Planning Bureau.
Okay. Just keep posted. Just keep posted.
HPDPB po.
Okay. All right, Rose. We will,
yes po, I'm interested po. Salamat po. Thank you po.
All right. I hope we have your email address, Rose, so we can continue staying in touch. Okay. Now, another question, one more here. Good afternoon po. The question is from Matt. Matt Dapadap. Are you here, Matt? Matt? The question is, meron po kasi ako patient with HIV na hirap po makatulog. Ano po kaya pwede gawin? Salamat po. That's his question.
Mukhang sa akin tapatak yan. You're a doctor, right?
Matt, Mr. Matt Dapadap, would you like to acknowledge?
Yes po.
Okay. Again, I will have difficulty to really answer with a straightforward answer because HIV, of course, is a major illness. HIV has all sorts of other psychosocial conditions or other psychosocial reactions in the person affected by HIV. I think the fairest answer I can give you is if the sleep problem is really disturbing to the person, she merits an assessment, a psychosocial assessment for her to determine what the sleep problem is all about. I don't think it is a single problem. I think it's a problem in terms of her own self, her reaction to her illness, the reaction that she would have in thinking of herself as part of society, as part of the family, how if she's working, whether or not she's working well, etc., etc. So I think that if the sleep problem is now bothersome to her, she merits a good psychosocial assessment.
Mr. Matt?
Thank you po, Doktora.
All right, thank you, Mr. Matt. Okay. For Ms. Lucy Lasso, please, can you please take this? If a webinar, this is from Wilma Batan, if a webinar will be requested from WAPR, will the content be the same for executives and rank and file?
Yes, Wilma happens to be from TESDA, where I used to be the Director General. Wilma, I think we'll have to have a segmented approach. Like now, Dr. Ignacio has done a webinar with the executives of DepEd. We could do something like that for the executives of TESDA. Then we can have something for the rank and file. Content will overlap, but there could be some differences. So we will have to assess the rank and file. Which group of rank and file are we talking about? So I think it's a yes and no, no? But basically, I think we should start with the executives of TESDA. So that that's a strategic entry point, because in a sense, we will be training them to mainstream mental health into the entire vocational training system. No? I hope that answers your question. I'm happy that you attended, Wilma.
Miss Wilma?
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Hello, ma'am. Good afternoon to all. Thank you very much for inviting me at first, and then thank you for the answer. It's always good to hear and to see you. Anyway, ma'am, kasi nung pinapakinggan ko yan, even after nung naka-attend po ako ng mga previous conferences, I have recommended to TESDA, to the management, to conduct seminars na yung kino-conduct po ng WAPR, because it's really very helpful, at lalo na ngayon sa situation na to. So, I'm still the president of the Central Office Employees Union Chapter. So, napakahirap na sitwasyon po ng mga empleyado. So I think this is a very, very helpful na seminar na maipakonduct. Immediately after this, I will get in touch with our AS director para makapagtanong po how it would be conducted. Siguro una muna, ma'am, sa Execom. I agree with you, una sa Execom, and then maybe separate group sa rank and file. Ma'am, thank you very much, and thank you sa lahat pong taga-WAPR.
Okay, Wilma.
Okay, Wilma. Thank you. Thank you, Wilma. Okay, it's time check. Yes.
Nads.
Yes.
Nadja, there is a question here that's striking me. The question is from Natalie de la Serna. Having said that meditation is to be still, be mindful, and be present in the moment, what is its difference between meditation and a person doing a sincere prayer? I think it's a very good question. Netfil, there is no difference. I mean, if you're doing your prayer so sincerely, deep in your heart, and really acknowledging your faith, acknowledging yourself with your God, that's already going into yourself. Maybe you don't have, in our Catholic prayer, we don't have the more systematic way that we presented to you in terms of the meditation that Rudi and I practice in Zen. But I used to listen to my teacher in Zen, a Catholic nun who had become a Zen master, Sister Elaine, and Rudi and I had trained with her. And we used to be worried that we were not being Catholics anymore because we are doing this Zen meditation. But Sister Elaine did tell us that our rosary is one of the most profound form of prayer as well as meditation. So I sometimes go to my rosary, hold it on, and keep it with my breath. I do my Hail Marys, I pray my Hail Mary, but I breathe with my Hail Mary. So it's just being sincere in your prayer is already meditation, because sincerity is really breathing life.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for that.
I hope I answered you. I just could not avoid not answering that, Rudi.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Overtime na tayo. It's now 4:20. There are some more questions, but we can just address them later on through Letty and our Secretary Jane. And we also have here some thank you notes. Thank you for those who extended their thank you notes. And just one line here. Wait a minute. I would just like to share this. There is a comment here from Evangeline Ginto saying that the term, breathing in Visayan word means ginhawa. Okay, she just wanted to share that, which is rightfully correct. Breathing in Bisaya is ginhawa.
Nads, it really has been decided upon in a study, an ethno-linguistic study by Professor Consuelo Jose Diliman. And she has identified the word ginawa. Thank you very much, Ilongga ako so I like ginawa. But she has really identified that ginhawa is it's an ethno-linguistic study, so they went around the country. They found that ginhawa is the Filipino indigenous term for well-being. So maybe kinuha nila sa aton ina. But it really is acknowledged as ginhawa, kaginhawaan. And in our Department of Education seminar, Secretary Briones, who's from Dumaguete, had really said they got it all from us, the Visayans, but it's okay na lang. Pinoy yan. You know.
Correct. Sige,
Pinoy na Pinoy.
Right. Bisaya din ako, mame. Kaya I can very well relate. Okay. So before I call on our president, the president of WAPR, I would just like to make this quick announcement that the next webinar will be on August 29. Okay, I repeat, August 29. Dr. Mike Vergara will talk on a Tai Chi plus his mindfulness therapy and Qigong. Is that correct, Dr. Tan Chong? Qigong. All right. Okay. So please mark that in your calendar, August 29. Same time, Dr. Tan Chong?
Yes, same time. Yes.
Okay. 2 o'clock to 4 p.m. All right.
Yes,
so I would now like to call on the president of WAPR of WAPR. She's the former, for everyone's information, she's the former USEC of the Philippine Department of Labor and Employment and a former Director General of TESDA, and also a psychologist by profession. So I'm turning this over to Miss Lucita Lasso. We call her Miss Lucy. Ma'am, the screen is yours.
Well, we've gone over time, so I will not prolong this closing remarks. I just want to say, first, thank you very much to all the participants for attending this webinar. Secondly, I'd like to say it has been a wonderful, very instructive and meaningful session. In one article that I read, there are two predictors of happiness. It's a neuroscience article. One, it said gratitude and lifelong learning. I think this session is a testimony to the fact that lifelong learning can lead us to happiness. Thank you very much, and I hope we will see you again. Thank you to Dr. Tabora, our speaker, imported pa from Baguio, and of course, our very own Lulu. And thank you to our partners in PAAI, Jackson and Dr. Tancho Chong, and Letty, and of course, the other board members, Dr. Vergara. We look forward to a continuing partnership and see you again in the third webinar. That's the last, no? The idea is to address the why, the what, and the hows of self-care in mental health. Okay, thank you again and see you all. Thank you, Nadja, for moderating.
All right, thank you very much. So we're wrapping up. Jackson, anything? And from Dr. Tan Chong?
Oh, maybe Dr. Tan would like to add something?
No, I think I'd like to say something that we are very happy that we are able to have this. Not only that we learn something, but we can see that we have a good working relationship between WAPR and in PAAI, which is our Philippine Academy of Acupuncture. Even though we are made in acupuncture, but we can see that acupuncture, which is a part of traditional Chinese medicine, can play a very important role in mental health. Like there are many principles in TCM and also acupuncture points that we can apply in mental health. So we can see that we have a good working relationship. Hopefully we can have more webinars to come and we can join hands to work. And we are happy that today it's an open forum that we are able to meet friends and we can link from our mental health worker, from Catanduanes, from BOH, and hopefully in the future, feel free to link to WAPR and also to Philippine Academy of Acupuncture. And we hope this is, even though we end today, but I hope this will be the start of something more to come. Thank you for attending. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Tan Cho Chong. Mr. Jackson Tan, anything?
Thank you very much to everyone. We look forward to our next session, August 29. Put that in your calendar.
Okay, and
bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jackson Tan, for helping us out. And before we officially close, I would also like to thank my friends in the tourism industry, because outside of WAPR, I'm with Tours and Travel and Event Management. I'd like to thank the people from the hotel industry who joined us today, and my friends from the Tours and Travel industry who also supported us. So we can do something like this, friends, through WAPR. We can also do a customized session for you. Just feel free to Viber me or to text me. Okay, so everyone have a good afternoon, have a good sleep. We can all breathe. Dr. Rudi Tabora, our very own Dr. Lourdes Ignacio. Everyone, thank you so much. We'll see you on the 29th.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.